Okay, good morning. So this morning we get a chance to have two of the consortiums talking together. And so do we want to do a quick introduction of everybody first before we get started? I'm Jessica from IDRC. I don't know, Bill, if you want to go next.
Sure, I'm Bill Bansberg from the Migrant Parent Empowerment Consortium.
And I'm Judy Grease, and I am the Migrant Administrator in North Dakota.
And we'll also have joining us Evelyn Arevalo from IDRC will also be, there she is. She'll be joining us here also in our first part.
Good morning. My name is Evelyn, and I am the project specialist, I guess, for the IDRC.
She's trying to think of what we call her because we have her do all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to do the first part of this presentation, and then we're going to switch it over to Bill. And so Evelyn and I will do the first part. And so we'll just, we're glad that you can join us. We appreciate your time in joining in this dissemination event. I think what's really cool about it is there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing. There's a lot of good work that's been done by the consortiums. And so this morning when Bill and I were kind of talking about, what we could possibly do together, he had suggested, really looking at what needs to happen beyond just identifying a family. And so I'm going to take the first part and then we'll switch. So let me go ahead and okay. So we'll just get started here. I'll go ahead and stop those. Okay. So here we go. The objectives for this session are, first, it says here, really understand strategies to recruit migrant families, some things that we need to think about as far as like incentives to participate, understand the importance of developing a relationship with families, understanding the importance of regular contact with families, really looking at the critical role that a recruiter has to migrant families, understanding the importance of a recruiter as part of the MEP team, really looking once you identify those families and really identifying their needs, and looking how the recruiter can really help facilitate services and resources available for families and for parents, and then how IDNR can assist with data collection and required reporting. So I'm going to take a few of the first bullets and then we'll switch. So I know we've been talking the last couple of days of, we have this resource and this resource. And so it's one thing to have resources. You could have a really effective recruiter that has very little resources that they can make things work. But we really feel like the resources that we have, and in all the consortiums, are only effective with that effective recruiter that's using them. And so you're each having unique needs of your students. I mean, I look at this picture here. It was taken in Hatch, New Mexico. Some of you have heard of the Hatch chilies that you can go to, Tex-Mex restaurants and they'll say these peppers are from Hatch. And I had a chance there's one of my favorite restaurants always has these food that I like, and it always mentions the Hatch peppers. And one time I had a chance to actually work out there and see, and it was really just interesting that, we hear of products, we use things all over the country from families, and then you go and you see the backbreaking work that someone does. And so this particular student is definitely an OSY under, this is a student that's out there working. And so it really takes somebody to be getting out there, someone to be talking to families and really finding them. And so it says here, understanding strategies to recruit families, incentives to participate. So one of the objectives we really wanted to think about was really going back, and this is preaching to the choir. These are things that but I want you to really do an inventory of your own program. So the best way to sell your program is to have something high quality and worth selling. I know yesterday Bill was talking about the resources they have with reading and math. I feel like sometimes migrant ed can be really watered down, and we may be doing very minimal services. We may be saying, well, I gave them a few supplies when I showed up, or we told them about local resources that are in the community. That is not why we're funded. That is one small aspect of what we're supposed to be doing, but we should be really making a difference to put the kids on the right path and helping them. So you want to do an inventory of what you're doing. And then sometimes we have programs say, well, we don't have a lot of funding. So then you want to do an inventory of what you can actually do with your current situation, your current resources. But if your area is just recruiting families and looking to maybe serve them in a couple years, then we're definitely not doing this right. And so we just wanted to reiterate, really looking at the importance that IDNR is just the mechanism to get them into the program and hopefully really, really be making a difference. So it says recruiting will always be a challenge since people are always coming and going, but a high quality programming makes this much easier. If kids, they participated in your innovative program that you did in the summer, and then they come back and they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, is that program still exists? We want to make sure our families are there. These are things that you know, but I think sometimes we can get in a rut and say, well, we just don't have much going on in our area, and so we're trying to raise our numbers so that in the future we can have programs. And we want to really change that right now to say, if I find a family, I really need to be serving them too. And if there's nobody else in the area, then sometimes recruiters need to be able to have the resources to be able to also cross-train and be able to, to serve families too. So it says here, do an inventory of what you offer that would be beneficial to families and youth. If you have limited resources, work to create additional ones. So yesterday I was talking with the state that they were talking about sometimes the recruiters not having a lot of resources. And so one of the suggestions we said was, you can work with the local school district to find out if there's any resources that families should be aware of and act as a go-between to make sure that the families know if they get stuck and their kids are really struggling in school, that they can reach out. And even if you don't have a program in the area, you can try to find them resources and be able to help them navigate those challenges that they're having. And you can also be an advocate back to that local district and say, hey, the Gonzalez family really needs help with this. This is what they're saying. This is what's going on, and follow up and make sure. And ideally, that would be a very base thing that you're doing. That's the very bottom that, that they should know that they can always go to you for information. So you want to be ready to share about those resources that you have. You're thinking of your services, you're thinking of your partners, you're thinking of your resources, and you're thinking of the materials that you can offer right when you sign them up. So there's already lots of things that that already exist. I don't know how many of you already listened to us the last couple of days. So I don't want to, I know I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself on some of these things. Just one example that I'm going to share that some of you may have already seen, but just in case you're brand new and you haven't heard it. The consortium, the IDRC consortium, really wanted to make sure that there was a beginning website for any migrant family. And so this is we'll drop that link in the chat box right here. It might have already been done. I'm going to see if that's there. Let me drop this in. We just have a page that if anyone's, brand new to the Migrant Ed program, they can go here. You can translate the site so it can be in any language. You can do it this way, or you can just translate it. So you can put it in any language right there. If you scroll down, we have findhelp.org that if you have, I'm just going to click on this real quick. If you have not used this, and this has every single county in the entire country that you can go in and you can find the information about all sorts of programs, legal, work, education, care, money, and you can also change it into any language. This teaches a parent to be able to look and see anything that's happening in their particular area, whatever language that they have. It will bring it all the way down to, right now it's in Armenian, to be able to see those things and actually be able to see those locations and places and find it right there around, and it translates automatically. So that's one of the first things we have here. We have our portal. We have, maybe a family's moved into a new area and they just don't know what schools are in that area. So they can find their schools right here. Health centers, Head Start, jobs, learning English. So at a minimum, they should be at least be getting a lot of information from us, to really be able to start and get in the program. So then you should really be able to understand the unique needs of your population. So just a little bit of history. When I started in the Tennessee Migrant Ed program, I learned Spanish as a missionary years ago, and I was recruiting in the Chattanooga area. And in that particular area, there were a lot of families from Guatemala. Actually, the very first time I came across was in a place called Dunlap, Tennessee. It's about an hour and a half from where I live. And there's a lot of work that people do in rocks or tomatoes. And so they kind of switch back and forth between those two industries. And I was talking to a couple that was standing in front of me, and I just thought my Spanish was bad. I'd never run into someone who spoke another language that, or dialect. Somehow I'm picking up extra sounds. Let me see if I can turn that off. I'd never run into anybody that, had spoke a dialect or another language besides Spanish that said they were from Mexico or from Guatemala. This was new to me. And they couldn't understand what I was saying. I couldn't understand what they were saying. And over time, I realized, wow, there's all of these different languages that people speak or different dialects. And a lot of times the families that I would run into they're really uncomfortable to talk with us. And I didn't understand the difference between, okay, this family's from Mexico. I was brand new in this. and this family is from Guatemala. Why does one respond so different to me? Why does, one seem so reluctant to share information? And so I really didn't know where to really learn other than asking people like, what am I doing wrong or how? And they would just say, oh, these families are just a little bit nervous to talk to us and you have to do X, Y, and Z. And we had a presentation that I'm going to steal a few slides from a girl named Madison Crow that was actually brought to us from the South Carolina Migrant Ed program. She had helped them, and she was doing a program here in Tennessee through Vanderbilt. And she was talking about the work that she had done in Guatemala and talking about all of the different languages that were all over. And of course, over the years, I've learned that there's a lot of different languages, but I guess I didn't realize the absolute importance of, identity and all of these different things tied to the languages. And so she shared just something that to me was really fascinating, that over the years is what had happened. And it says here, the cornerstones of the Mayan culture, including our land, community, and attachment to place, and the language. And it said Mayan language is unmistakable symbols of their identity and existence, which of course that obviously makes sense. But then she kind of talked about the history of what had happened in Guatemala and the wars, and then when Spanish was considered the official language, and then the people that didn't speak Spanish, just what happened if you were considered to speak, a different language that was not Spanish, and how a lot of times they didn't want to disclose that, and they could actually lose benefits and resources. And as she was talking about that, I was thinking, all those years, I just assuming maybe it was just because of the language. You got two languages. They've got their Mayan language, and then they're learning Spanish when they come to the US, and they're, and I just thought it was just that. But then when you hear even more, sometimes a lot, things make even more sense. And so, I don't know, Evelyn, if you want to unmute yourself. So Evelyn is from Guatemala. So I don't know if you want to give a few insights or thoughts on this, because I'm just speaking from listening to someone that I found interesting, but you want to go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm actually from Guatemala. As a child, you growing up, and even in the schools, what they do, even myself, we have to learn Spanish. I speak Spanish. I don't speak any dialects, but we are brought up since we were kids that we don't speak Spanish, that we speak some Castellano. And however, Guatemala, I'm from Guatemala City, and Guatemala has so many, I think like 25 or so many dialects. And when I came to the United States, there was nobody from Guatemala, and not in the city not in Gainesville, Georgia, where I live. However, throughout the years, when I started working with the migrant education program, the first people from Guatemala that started arriving here was from Huehuetenango, and they all spoke one dialect, and that was Calhoban. Okay. However, every time I try to talk to them, even when I used to bring my quetzal out, say, "Hey, I'm from Guatemala," they didn't believe I was from Guatemala because I didn't speak their dialect. And I learned, throughout the years. Obviously, it wasn't just Huehuetenango has so many dialects. They have Chug, they have Mam, they have Calhoban, they have Acateco, Quiche, Sutuil, so many dialects. And so I learned by going to this other school district that I started covering from someone from Huehuetenango. They had leaders. I wasn't aware of that. So for me to actually get in their community and for them to start trusting me, I had to I talked to the church where all the Guatemala people were going, and then they set up a meeting with their leaders. I didn't know, to be honest, I'm from Guatemala. I never saw this before, where the leaders actually, they still wear their, they wear some sort of like a skirt, and if you talk to them, and then they will go and talk to the community from Huehuetenango. And I'm not saying that this is all 100% from everyone that comes from Guatemala, but there are certain groups in Guatemala that they will not talk to anyone unless you find their leaders, and the leaders you will have to set up a time to meet with them. And then from that point on, they will introduce you to that community. This started happening in LJ, Gilmore County, where I used to go and recruit. Then I noticed here, actually in Gainesville, Georgia, we went to this this apartment complex. And the thing from Guatemala is that everybody, like they speak only one language or only one dialect. They all go and live in the same, like they go like in groups and spots, like all apartment complex, they will probably, all of them speak Chuk. And then in another apartment complex, they all will speak Hmong. So then we went to this apartment complex, they all spoke Chuk, and I found like maybe 15 of us was there. None of them wanted to get signed up. None of them wanted to talk to me. And so I started asking, do you guys have leaders? Because I only experienced this in another school district. Is there anyone that they actually, like go for information, they speak their own dialect? And I find out that, yes, they have also had leaders. So that's the one thing that I even learned from my country, that depending on their dialects and where they're coming from and the towns that they're coming from, they have leaders. And unless you talk to them and build that relationship with them, then, there is no way in.
I think that's a perfect example of, I know this training right now is not just on Guatemala, but depending on the population that you have, you suddenly have a new way, like that you may even be from the place that you're, your population, you think, okay, I should know this. It just really brought home the importance of understanding your population, understanding where they're coming from, and understanding that they may do things totally different. Like the woman may not speak until the man, comes in, or it may be the opposite. And so her presentation was really interesting. And I noticed if you raise your hand, just put your question in the chat box, because we're not going to unmute anybody or anything. So just put any comments that you have there. So like it says here, we challenges facing Indigenous students in this presentation. She was just talking about people just assuming, oh, you're from this place, well, you must speak Spanish, or you must do this, or, and they really, your culture, or we're just overlooking some things. And so it really brought home that, my assumptions that I might have thought, I can do this or do this, and I just was wrong. And so we had a Somali population that moved in when I was working in Tennessee, and we went from a full, the whole area was Spanish speaking from all over the country, all over the world. And then it switched to Somali families. And that was a whole new experience for me to try to figure out how to talk with those leaders. And that was there was no way we could get into the community without meeting with their leaders and with really going in. So I think that it just shows that, there's a lot of, there's a lot of slides here. So I'm just going to kind of skim over a few things. It says sometimes we may wonder why someone may be hesitant to talk to us, but we're not realizing this whole different culture, or this whole different understanding of just how things work. And so it's up to us to learn more and build that relationship of trust with that community that we have. And so these are some pictures. We do have the photo release. Years ago, we did a program that was funded through Migrant Ed and through 21st Century for kids in the town that I live in. And the really cool thing was to be able to take kids and do so many different things. It says here, our program allows us to participate in the hopes and dreams of kids and families if we do this right. So we can make a very minimal impact where, you do a re-interview and you talk to a family and they say, yeah, this lady came by and she gave me a book, but we've never seen anything else. Or you can truly have someone that's saying, I think there was a video yesterday of a student that was saying, the reason I'm able to be here is because of HEP and because of the Migrant Ed program. And so I think it behooves each one of us to really look at what we're doing and making sure that we're not just doing IDNR. And so we did some in-home tutoring, and this is a family that, a little girl that was making something that, after one of our tutors went in and they were making monsters and studying the swamps and doing all these things. And it was just, this really be able to open up the world to a lot of kids. They already travel, they see a lot of things, but they don't get to experience a lot of things. Just due to their lifestyle, but yet they're just treasures of, wonderful things that you learn right alongside of them. And so it says here, building a relationship, 7 simple ways to establish good relationships with those that you meet. So this is if we're a tutor, if we're a recruiter, you're introducing yourself. And these are basic things, but I think sometimes we can not always be comfortable with each one of these. You're introducing yourself, you're being friendly and approachable. The biggest thing I learned when I was first starting recruiting, that if I'm nervous, they pick up on that immediately. So here's this nervous lady that's standing at your house and you're like, how you doing? And they're thinking, what is she really doing? And so I had to learn to get over any nerves and try to be comfortable with that, be friendly and approachable, practice good communication skills, be respectful and considerate, participate in activities in your community, in your areas that they can see you and you can that would be helpful for them, offer assistance and support, and be a responsible friend, neighbor. So the other thing is we can make sure that once we establish that beginning contact, to continue to have contact with them. It's not, I had one program recently that we were working with that we did some re-interviews with, and they were like, hey, can you get a little bit more information about the families themselves? That way we don't have to call them multiple times. Like maybe we're doing a re-interview and the family said that their kid needed math help. And so we said, as IDRC, we can just kind of get that information and then you really reach out and do a lot more. And at one point they thought, well, maybe what happens if you guys just get better information? We said, our problem is we don't have your program. So I don't know what all you offer, and I can't really promise everything to this family. And one of them thought, well, maybe it's too much for the family for us to be reaching back and forth. If that mom has a kid that's having a hard time with math, she is not going to mind if you call 2 or 3 times or you set something up and you check back. And so I think sometimes we can think of this idea of bothering them at the same time they're thinking, well, what are you guys really doing? So really stay in communication with the family through WhatsApp, through text or calls, through a Facebook page, through home visits, checking in to see how kids are doing, and then through those high quality services that we're hopefully offering. I like South Carolina's model with their Facebook page. I don't know if any of them are on the thing. I use this one a bunch just because they have a very active Facebook page where they're constantly putting information out. They may, one of them may be pumping gas and they're like, we're going to do a 5-minute ESL lesson on the, all the vocabulary related to everything that you need to know going to the gas station. So they may not have direct contact with their families and talking to them every single week, but if those families are being reminded of the value of the Migrant Ed program, as they look at their Facebook and they see new postings and they see new information. And so one thing you want is the families know that you are a purveyor of good information that will benefit for them. At the minimum, they should know that the recruiter or that the local service provider is someone that they can reach out and ask questions. We definitely don't believe in doing everything for everybody. So they think, oh, I've got to do something. I need to call Jessica because she'll do it for me. That's not, but you can provide a lot of information. And so I think they do a really good job with their page. Let's see what else so I think that if we do this right, they know that, there's so many resources that we can bring families to, so many resources and through high quality services and so much options and things that we can do. And now with things that are available virtually, and there's just so much more than what was in the past. And there's a lot more that we can do. So I'm going to switch the time over to Bill and kind of turn my mic and my camera off and stop sharing, and he will, Bill and Judy will be taking over right now.
Okay. Can you turn our video on?
Yes.
Thanks.
Let's see.
Let me pull up this PowerPoint real quick here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And what you shared is, thank you so much, Jessica. What you shared is really, really important. I want to talk about a broader aspect of this, and this is, my comments are based on my experience in doing migrant family re-interviews since the beginning, since they started doing the re-interviews. I've been involved in the re-interviews in multiple states, and what I and some of this is just kind of the way my thinking is, but this is what I've seen in different in different situations. The migrant program is kind of divided in general terms into IDNR services, and then there's this whole data reporting and requirements part. Those are the 3 parts. Sometimes in many situations, and it's kind of the way it's viewed, depending on what district you're in or what state you're in, or what whether they're using regional approach to services, or they're using, they have individual local migrant programs that provide services. Sometimes IDNR is out there on its own. The expectation is that the recruiter their job is to go out and recruit the families, and that's it. They recruit the families, they bring in the COEs, and then they're kind of left on the outside. A lot of times recruiters are not, and this has been my experience, are brought into like a full member of the MEP team. They are asked to recruit families, and then they're, then we'll take it from here. And so what you sometimes you see that there's a separation. So we have the IDNR, we collect the COEs, then it's up to the district or the state or the regional program to provide the services. And then there's all this other data reporting and requirements. And what I've heard and seen from all my experience with re-interviews is what the families will say is that the recruiter is actually, one of the most integral parts of the whole piece, because that's who the family knows. That's who the family talks to. When a family has a need, they generally call the recruiter because that's who they are in contact with, and that's who they trust. And it's often that's who speaks their language. So the recruiter needs to be part of, and this is the way, I look at it. When you look at the MEP program, it should be all folded together. It should be overlapping. There's an IDNR part, but it overlaps to the services as well as the data reporting and requirements piece. And I'll explain that here in a second. But it's really critical to bring the recruiter into the MEP team. As I said, the recruiter is often only the MEP staff that meets in person with the family. The recruiter is often considered by migrant families as a key contact with the school. The family will often tell the recruiter their needs and the needs of their children. I hear this all the time. And then you also hear from the families when you do the re-interviews. We were, recruited. We signed this COE, but so far we've seen nothing. We don't know what this program is, or we've not gotten nothing in return. Now, I do know, as Jessica said, migrant education is a program that doesn't have a whole lot of resources. It's not a huge program, not in the scope of, compared to Title I and some of the other programs. And so oftentimes we're dealing with very small programs, a very, very small amount of resources to be able to be shared. Jessica gave some great ideas, and some, one of the things I would encourage is that each of the consortiums has wonderful resources that anyone can use to help support these families. But by and large, families are going to, and this has been my experience, families will tell their needs and then to the recruiter, and it needs to be legitimate and open. And my encouragement to administration of migrant programs, whether you're in the district or in the state, is to encourage recruiters and make them a part of the team to share this information back and forth. And we have some strategies that we use as part of the Migrant Parent Empowerment Consortium to help facilitate that. The recruiter also has contact information for the families and can pass along communications from the MEP program. The families often provide the recruiter with information valuable to the program. Families will often attend events and become involved in MEP activities due to encouragement from the recruiter. And the recruiter's in a position to pass along critical data regarding the changing status of the family and the children is one. I mean, that's a necessary thing. I mean, you need to know from year to year whether the family is still there, whether some kids have come to join or leave. All of these things are important, changing in grade levels, etc. So regular contact with the family is critical. In addition to that, it's also the kind of data that the local programs in the state need in order to make their required reports to OME. So the recruiter plays a very critical role. What can a recruiter provide as part of the MEP team? The recruiter should meet regularly with local MEP staff, and that's all the staff, whoever the staff is, and the local MEP director to discuss and resolve eligibility issues. That's clear. But they can also assist with identification of needs. And we have some strategies you can use to do that, but you can formalize that. You can bring it into, where the recruiter is not just doing IDNR, but actually helping identify the needs of the family and formalizing it in a way that can bring it back to the local program in the state. The recruiter can provide valuable information to assist in, which will assist in planning the program. If the recruiter can report back what the needs of every single migrant family is, that information can be used to plan what kind of services can we provide. You know, as Jessica said, you know, you have to kind of look at your toolkit of what you have. And but in order, and you know, some of us have more than others, depending on the size of the state and the amount of MEP staff we have. But if you know the needs of each family that you're serving, then you can put together some kind of a logical response to that to make sure that you're providing services. The recruiter can also assist by doing this with the collection of required data and information needed for the CSPR, the continuous, the Consolidated State Performance Report, which is required of all state migrant programs, as well as data that's used in M6. Now, this sounds like, and this may go over and above and beyond what many states ask of recruiters. And what I'm talking about here and how this can work is not like another second job. This is just something that you can do when you're talking to the family or when you're completing a COE. Recruiters can provide information to families regarding the availability of resources also. You know, Jessica mentioned several. We also have several as part of this consortium that can be provided and mentioned to families so that they know that there's resources there and there's some kind of a connection as to how they can get help. And like I said before, the recruiters can facilitate the engagement of families in the MEP program. One of the ways that we use in the MPEC states, the Migrant Parent Empowerment states, is we've created something we call the Parent Advocate Family Log. And this is something that if you're interested in it, you can use it or use a version of it. But when the recruiters go out to recruit a family and bring the COE, they also bring this. And the shaded blue part of the form is basically just a way of recording needs of that family. You have a space to list the kids, the ages, and the family. You don't have to, they're already on the COE, but you can circle the grade levels that they're in. And then you can do check boxes, just asking the family, you know, what do the kids need help with? That's something you can do in addition to asking the eligibility questions. You can find out whether they need reading, writing, math instruction, and help with learning English, you know, readiness for kindergarten. Do the parents need help with a GED? You know, and you can write in that box as when you're out recruiting, you can simply identify the needs. You can also ask a couple other key questions. You can ask whether the family has access to the internet. You know, as a result of COVID, we were put in a situation where a lot of education was virtual for a couple of years. And one of the things that we found out, you know, is that there's a lot of migrant families that don't have access to the internet. So what do? You have to make a plan. You have to do something about that. What about, do they have access to a laptop, tablet, or a smartphone? A lot of families have access to smartphones, but what resources work on smartphones? This is the kind of, the blue part, shaded part is the kind of information that recruiters can collect. It doesn't step over the line to prescribing instruction or making a plan for what to do about the needs. That's the white part of the form. If the recruiter fills out the blue part of the form along with the COE and comes back and brings that back to the program, the local program, the regional program, the state program, what happens there is now you've got some idea what the needs of that individual family is. And if you do it for every family, you've got a way of knowing what the needs of every single family that you're serving have. And this is really valuable information that can be used for the comprehensive needs assessment. When you're looking at, you know, if you use the parent advocate log and in the whole state and you collect it for every family, you know exactly what their needs are. And you can lay it out and be used. That's what I mean by your recruiter actually can help collect data for the necessary reporting to OME. The white part of the form is the part that the program, the MEP program staff, the local migrant program director, or the instructional staff, that's their part to fill out. You look at the blue part, and then you would say, okay, so what can we do about this? So this is kind of a structured way that we've been using, we feel really successfully, to help identify needs of the families, and then set it up so that you can make a plan to how you can provide services. You know, the migrant program, you know, exists. We cannot just simply recruit families and then, you know, as I've seen in some situations, that's it. They get recruited, nothing happens. We have to be able to provide services back to those families. And I know that, you know, a lot of times when that situation develops, it's because there's not a lot of resources. And so we're doing the best we can. But we try and use this kind of a strategy to at least which is very, very valuable information for the local program to have, as well as the state. And anybody who's interested in this form, you know, we'll be glad to provide it to you. We'll provide contact information at the end, or you can create your own kind of format. But this is something that we use consortium-wide in the MPEC states. We also have, on our consortium, I'm just talking about the resources we have. We have some flyers in English and Spanish that you can print out and pass out to families that will tell them about the Migrant Literacy Net. There's a parent portal on the Migrant Literacy Net where parents can go on and get a lot of help that you can, you know, as a recruiter, you can show them. If they say, well, you know, my kids need help with reading and math, the recruiter doesn't have to actually take them through the Migrant Literacy Net or show them how to set up, you know, tutorials online and all that. But the recruiter can provide the family with information. And this is to say, you know, we need help with reading and math. We have some things that everybody can do. Regardless of your resources, the Migrant Literacy Net is free. And so you can hand out flyers to them, and you can tell them that this parent portal is available. And if they need or would like additional information, you know, you can pass that along to the MEP staff in the local program. But you know, the Migrant Literacy Net has all kinds of resources for families right on there, you know, including setup of helping their own children to learn and read and do math, activities that they can do with their kids that are fun to help teach reading and math, and then even a plan that they can use to improve their own reading, math, and English language proficiency. So this is just our consortium. Every consortium has some wonderful resources that, you know, the recruiter can be prepared to pass that information along to the families. I'm going to turn it over to Judy, and she'll talk about how she uses these resources with migrant families.
Thanks, Bill. We've been using this for the last few years, and our recruiters have been an integral part of that. At first, it was another page they might have to utilize and fill out. How is that going to work? Are they going to be comfortable with that? But in the end, it turned out really well, because along with all the information on the COE that they inquire from the parents, um, when you get to the part where the parents tell you about their children, and you know, you get to the part where, well, my son really needs reading help, or I have a daughter who needs her GED, and that brings up discussion with the recruiter, and a comfort zone and an opportunity for them to build that relationship that we've been talking about. And it just opened up doors, actually, of comfort then, as Bill and Jessica both had mentioned, that the recruiter is really the main person that the family talks to. Um, a lot of times families aren't real comfortable approaching the school to ask those questions or to tell them that information. Sometimes the families themselves, due to their frequent moves and the history of migrating, aren't always comfortable in the school setting. And so to have recruiters who are right there with them, and oftentimes our recruiters are also migrant family members as well. I know in North Dakota, all of our recruiters except one uh, come from migrant families and sometimes are still working in the fields themselves or in the processing plants in the off school time for summer program in North Dakota. And that's hugely helpful as well. So those families that know recruiters, the recruiters are come from that migrating history, there's already a relationship built there that I, as a director, can't build the same with them because I don't have that same history. And so it's hugely helpful to have the recruiters ask some of those questions. It's been very helpful. Finding out whether they have internet or not, or if they have devices to use, hugely helpful to the coordinators and the teachers when they know that right away. So we can get them, a device if possible to help with the instruction that we plan to use. And so it's that has been hugely helpful. When we have had, because we're part of MPAC and MPAC One, um, we have actually used the opportunity with the recruiters. We invite them to everything we do. So if we have a picnic, if we have a anything going on in the school, back to school night, if we're having a health fair, if we're having sign up for health opportunities, whatever that is, we include them on all of that. Some of our recruiters actually work part-time in the school as aides or as helping with English language tutoring with students with their work if they need that. Um, for parent nights, we utilize them to translate in Spanish for us because we have a lot of families that migrate to North Dakota who are Hispanic. Most of ours are, and that's very helpful for us. Uh, we can have our presenter speaking in English, and we'll have the recruiter standing right next, translating it in Spanish for those that need that. And so they become just an integral part of everything we're doing in the school system, which is helpful. When we have back to school nights or we have opportunities for the parents to come and learn about the migrant literacy net, if we have, that's just one example. We will have the recruiters invited as well, and they will walk around and they're well trained in that as well. They know how to use the system. Some of them have children that are using the system in school as well. And we have found that they're our best teachers on those nights because they could walk around and the parents tend to feel comfortable with them because they know them, and it just builds the relationship of the parent, the family, the students to the school so much stronger. And yeah, they're just an integral part. So involving them in as much as possible. As far as my the being part of the team, that's how we approach it here. We all of us have a part in the team to do, but the recruiters are well aware that their part is probably one of the most vital parts because they're directly talking to the families and the families trust them and will ask them the questions they wouldn't ask us. I know I got a call from one of my recruiters the other day and she said, I had a parent call me and was upset because um, somebody kept calling them and wanting to do, well, what they wanted was a re-interview. And they didn't understand who this person was that was calling them because it wasn't somebody familiar. It would be someone like Bill calling them and say to do a re-interview. It wasn't Bill, but they didn't even want to talk to them because they didn't know if that was a safe person for them to talk to. So one of the things we realized then is our recruiters vital in, in mentioning when they sign them up with the COE, when they do ask the questions on the parent advocate log, mention that we do a process called re-interviewing, and you might get asked those questions again, and somebody that you don't know might be calling. And as soon as she explained that to this parent, the parent said, oh, okay, so when she calls back, I'll talk to her. And that was something we never even thought about in the past. But the way things have changed in the world, a lot of us, I know I don't, if I look down and I see a number on my phone, coming in and I don't recognize it or a name, I'm probably not picking it up myself. So why would they want to? And so that's, there's things like that happening all the time. So we have that, pick up the phone, just if you get a question, if you get a concern, and we build the comfort zone with the recruiter to feel that they're so much a part of the team that it's vital for them to do that, and feel that comfort zone with asking our coordinators, our teachers, and calling my office all the time. And it's not uncommon for me to have a half-hour phone conversation with my recruiter or recruiters, or when I go to monitor, do the same thing, because they're just such a vital part of what we do. When we're training on our consortium in the MLN, we have them invited to join on with us so they understand why we're using that program, what it's for, and it just helps them field the questions that the parents are, and the students sometimes. The students are well aware then because they know that that's someone that their parent asks those questions to. So it's just part of the team, it's part of the school, and there's just a comfort zone there because of that. So having them involved in those other things outside of the actual just interview time makes them a part of the school. And of course, just like any of us, if we have friends in our school system or anywhere we go, we feel a comfort zone because we have our people there. And that's how they feel. And it's really helped us a lot to do that. The advocate form has been extremely helpful. It immediately tells the coordinators exactly what they need, what the parents are looking for. And as Bill said, to do your service delivery plan and needs assessment, it really does help with that. The teachers and the staff will fill out the lower part on the programming that they use to identify, to address the needs that were stated up above. And it's hugely helpful for us in doing that as well. And so just the communication part, making them comfortable, making the parents feel comfortable to be part of school. And when they know their recruiters that came to the house and visited with them, and that's their first point of contact, it's just, I can't say it enough, the team building. We also, have tried to include them in trainings, as we're doing right now. We do video trainings, of course, but we've made it really important that our school districts, our centers, send them to training. So I know Jessica had three of my recruiters at the IDRC last meeting that you guys had in Florida, and that takes some skill building on my part to make sure that the superintendents and principals in those districts understand why it's important the recruiter needs to be there for that. And I do that sell job myself because they are that crucial to the program and to the comfort zone of the families. And what we're finding is numbers, we're rather than putting so much emphasis on the recruiter finding those people for the numbers kind of start to take care of themselves, because one parent tells the other parent, oh, I know recruiter Araceli and she's coming to visit. And oh yeah, I heard about her too. And but just through word of mouth, they feel the comfort to tell each other about that. Also, benefit of just having recruiters who are migrant family workers themselves, or have been, or have that history. The parents have an immediate comfort zone with them, and they understand that they understand their way of life in a way that I couldn't the same. And it's just very powerful and it's exciting. And when they see that they're part of the school, they're part of the team, we are asking them questions, or what do you think about this? And again, they field questions to them that they wouldn't pick up the phone and ask the teacher. They are asking those recruiters. It's helped us with other resources in the community. We make sure that they're well aware of what other resources are there. If they're migrant families that have been in that area themselves, they know those resources, so they help the families find those things much more quickly as well. And so just creating that comfort zone that we're one big family, we're all working together, we all want to help your kids. Um, and it's just it's worked out really, really well. Um, Again, they will reach out and say, you know, my child needs eyeglasses, but or I really think I'm going to need some dental help. And when we do the uh, when we do our health services, they are there that night as well. And they also connect those bridges for us on the local resources and how that works. And so it's just been extremely helpful to have the recruiters involved in every aspect of what we do. Um, and know that they just should pick up the phone and call at any time and tell us what's working. Tell us what your families are saying. Even in some of our programming, you know, we've had uh, with technology, there's different programmings in different districts, and some districts use, especially for high school credit, certain online programs that may work in that district, but then for summer programs, if they come in from a different district, the district they go back to may not use that. Well, if that's the case, then we have to find something else to serve those kids while we have them. And they are crucially involved in helping us find out that the parents need those needs. We wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that from my office. And so it's really important to get down to that level of just like as Bill had mentioned, you know, just focusing more in on what the actual need are of each child. And so having them involved in every aspect of that, especially with MLN and the parent advocate log. And we thought it would be kind of overwhelming, another thing, another form to fill out, something else the recruiter needs to do, but it didn't turn out that way because they're having conversation and it's bringing a comfort zone between the families, and they really feel those recruiters are invested in what's best for their kids, and they appreciate it. And yeah, every opportunity we have as a group that way becomes kind of a celebration of our time together. And that comfort zone just makes them comfortable, and when they're comfortable, they're asking more questions, we can serve them better then. And so it's just been very, very helpful, but definitely including them at every level. um, it isn't just signing the forms and sending the forms in. We find that they just automatically are connecting us to more families and more families, and somebody else knows a family, and then they call the recruiter, and it just kind of takes care of itself. So it's been wonderful to have that, and we've been very lucky. You know, I've been very lucky that we haven't had big turnover. And the other, you know, I know this is a piece that everybody talks when we meet in small groups. We all talk about how do we keep them from turning over? And definitely that comfort zone is part of that. And to make them feel they're part of the team and ask them lots of questions about what do you think is working? What's working best? I need you to tell me because you're out there with the family, you're in the field, you're going to the processing plants, you hear what they need. So what are you hearing and what are you seeing and what problems are there? And that helps us just brainstorm to figure out how to serve better. um, and another big thing is, I know a couple years back during pandemic time when it was really difficult to keep people out in the field, we had to use phone lines more. But also, when we went back to work, a lot of people took jobs doing other things because a lot of times they just weren't, they were spending a lot of time in cars, they were spending a lot of time driving places, but sometimes it just wasn't paying what they could get in the field. And so making it a priority to pay them better became kind of a goal that I had for them. And I want, you know, if it's possible to make your resources work that way, that's a really, it's a very positive tool, not just because they make more per hour, but because it inspires them that they're valuable to this program. And the same with the school. When they know the school district says, well, you know, we really could be buying more computers, but this year we're going to pay you more money. Um, when they know that the rest of our team is fighting for that for them, they feel that they're valued in a way that oftentimes they've never felt. And so that also encourages them to just work even that much harder for us. And they do. And they do. They want to be part. They've been there. They've migrated. They've had children of their own, and they love the opportunity to share the successes that the school districts have provided them through the migrant program. And that's we like them to tell their stories because that encourages the other families. So I don't know, Bill, did you have anything else you wanted me to mention?
No, I think I appreciate that very much, Judy, and that comes from a state director and someone who's on the ground working with this. I think we're running out of time, so if it's okay, I'll shift to the next slide here, and we'll just talk real briefly about a lot of the things that just by using the parent advocate form and some minor things, there are some parts of that whole data requirement part that the recruiter can be helpful with. The parent advocate log collects needs data. You can also provide information on the resources that the program provide. But the recruiter also is there, and if they're regular contact with the family, they provide information that you have to report to both your local data system for your migrant data system, whatever that is, MIS 2000 or whatever data system you have, as well as M6, because you need to know when families leave, when they withdraw. So regular contact with the family when there's changes, when they move from place to place, when their phone numbers change. That happens all the time. The recruiter can also provide information on other family needs like health. Judy mentioned that. And information critical, as I already mentioned, to the state migrant data system. I think we're down to just a few minutes. So I wanted to put the contact information up here for Jessica, Judy, and myself. If anybody has any questions or things that you'd like, more information about these resources and the kinds of things that you can do, be more than glad to help. And now I think it would be best just to kind of open it up for questions to see if anybody has any questions. Somebody says, can we please obtain access to the logs forms? Yes, I didn't include them in the documentation, but I will send them to Jessica immediately after this presentation. So if anybody wants to use the logs, they can.
Bill, Carrie, it looks like Carrie has it in there in the chat. She has the
Okay.
link to the parent advocate log in the chat.
Carrie just put that in there, Carrie Simivan. So you can, yes, you can go ahead and grab that form, and you're welcome to use it or modify it to, meet your needs. Jessica, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think you guys covered everything. And like I said, Carrie has the Google link to your advocate, and we'll go ahead and put that log in the presentation file. So I think we're good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it and hope this was a useful conversation this morning. And I want to thank Judy especially. Very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.